Hello, everybody. Welcome to the entertainment headquarters and welcome to another retro classic movie show. My segment on the channel that is dedicated to films anywhere from the 1970s, 60s, 50s, all the way up to the early 2000s. And to join me today is my amazing co host, all the way from the Metal Tavern Radio, Mr. DJ Anubis.
What's up, everyone?
Hello, and in the comment today we have it's DJ Anubis. Then we have
Someone
Kaiju Ricky.
impersonated me?
Mr. Kaiju Ricky, thank you for joining us today. Hope you're well. Yes, I agree. I love this movie as well. That's why I picked it for my pick on this show. So the movie that we're talking about, as seen by Kaiju Ricky, is Leon the Professional from 1994. So this for me I remember seeing this many years ago and it stood out for a number of reasons. But my good friend, my co-host, Mr. DJ Anubis, can you remember the first time you seen Leon the Professional?
Yeah, so back in the day when we still had video stores and it was on VHS, like we're talking VHS days, I remember seeing the cover, which eventually I did actually end up buying it on VHS. So I saw it, rented it, watched it. I was like, this is amazing. This is before I even know who Jean Reno was or even Natalie Portman. Like it was all new to me. You know, I knew about Bjork, of course, some of the music in there. And eventually, of course, I went to get the actual DVD, which for whatever reason on here, they decided to say, make Speed look like a slow ride to grandma's house. And I'm like, but they're not really even the same kind of movie. But I
Yeah.
found that funny about that, right? So I did pick up the DVD eventually. And then, of course, more recently, I actually got the uncut director's version of the film itself, which we'll be talking a little bit about, as that's the one that I watched today.
Yeah. Well, shock horror, I've never actually seen the uncut version.
Oh, boy, we're going to have fun with that then. Let me tell you.
So I remember when I first seen Leon the Professional, it was probably the year after it came out, probably 1995, not 1994, and I probably had to wait till it came out on video rental. I remember, I think my brother or somebody, either my brother or my dad rented it, and I watched it with them after it was rented. And I just loved the story and I loved the performances, particularly one character who is the fantastic Gary Oldman, who, of course, is one of my favourite actors. As you know, I always give him high praise. He's good in everything he does. And his character really, for me, sells the movie. Like, obviously, I have Jean Reno as well, and Natalie Portman, a young Natalie Portman in this, who for her age put on quite a strong performance. And we were talking off camera about young actresses that came up from when they got the big break. Like we're talking about Kirsten Dunst, Hallie Stansfield, who's now in Sinners, which is still, I think, going to be at the minute at the top of my list of film of the year in my top 10. And obviously we've talked about Millie Bobby Brown, but Natalie Portman, for her age back in the day, was among those young actresses coming up, getting their big break and really like starting to get noticed and carve their niche in terms of film.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So let's get cracking and talk about Leon the Professional. So Leon the Professional is a United States film. And Leon Outside of the United States is a 1994 English language French action thriller film written and directed by Luc Besson. It stars Jean Reno and Gary Oldman and features the film debut of Natalie Portman. The plot centers on Leon, an Italian-American professional hitman who reluctantly takes in 12-year-old Matilda Lando after her family is murdered by corrupt Drug Enforcement Administration agent Norman Stansfield, who was played magnificently by Gary Oldman. Leon and Matilda form an unusual relationship as she becomes his protege and learns the hitman trade. The film was released in France and on the 14th of September 1994 and received mostly positive reviews from critics. So it had a budget of 16 million and it made 45.3 million at the worldwide box office.
Yep.
So the film really starts off with, a bang. And so you do have, so this is, of course, this is Jean Reno's Leon, and there's Natalie Portman's Matilda, who, the film basically starts off with a bang where it basically shows him, and he refers to himself as a cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of working for the local, I guess, hitman agency that is run by Old Tony, who I also actually really enjoyed the performance of Old Tony as well, who says he's constantly saying, "Don't worry, Leon, I'm looking after your money. I'm taking care of you. If you need anything, but for a fact he's never going to give him any real money."
Yeah, that's Danny Aiello, who's like a legend with filmmaking. He's been around for quite a while. So
yeah, I like him in this, but I've also seen him in that one with Bruce Willis, Hudson Hawk, is it?
Yeah.
I thought he was brilliant, especially the ending when you thought, he was gone, but he turned out he wasn't gone. I thought that for me is a really underrated, funny film.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So obviously he's working for Old Tony. He's worked as a cleaner, aka a hitman. And the film starts off where you basically see him, and he's like, there's a guy in like a building who's got like a lady in. He's got loads of people around him, and he basically gets told he has to go in there, give them pass a little message on. And it's this guy, and he basically goes into the building. And he gets in with no real problems, and you just see him slowly, one by one, kind of going around the building, taking out this guy's enforcement, and the people waiting for him. And he's a guy that shouldn't be in the town.
Yeah, I like the opening day because this guy's up in his penthouse and he's got his bodyguards, and there's a guy named Tonto down in the main floor. And Tonto calls up to this guy, says, "Hey, you got a visitor?" And he's like, "Who is he? What does he look like?" He just says, "Serious," because he's got a gun in his face. And then I guess Leon's like, "Tell him I'm coming up," and that's when the shit just hits the fan. People start getting taken out, and he's just making his way up to this penthouse, and it's quite a nice opening scene.
It is. It really sets the tone of who Leon is right off the beginning. So you're like, I don't know if you feel the same, but when it comes to Leon as a character, he seems to be somebody who he's come to America. You don't really know his backstory. You know that he's had trouble. There is one little bit of backstory that Old Tony kind of reveals as he's talking, and basically he had trouble with a woman I'm assuming back in Italy. Yeah. So and he owed money, and so I think he probably fled Italy to come to America. And But I always found that even though he's like a hitman and he's still like getting to know the language and read English, language books and all, I felt as if he's like, even though he's a great hitman, there was something about him like he had like some sort of, I wouldn't say autism, but there seems to be there's something there with him.
Well, from what I've read, like Jean Reno like approached the character as if he was kind of uneducated and he was like had the mind of like a 10-year-old.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And so like it really kind of interests me because you look at Tony, who is looking after Leon and using him as a tool for business, but it's like also at the same time it's almost like Tony actually takes advantage of him because he knows he's not that smart. So that's why later on when we find out that Leon has actually started to learn how to read, this is something Matilda teaches him. You can see Tony's expression change. He's like, oh, well, Leon's getting smarter. He's starting to figure shit out. So, yeah, I think that the way that Reno approached the character was for a number of reasons, and some of it I'll talk about a little bit later as well. But he does seem like he's just not quite educated, and some of that could be because he was running away from that problem in Italy. And once he got to America, he just never had the time to learn the language. So all he knew about doing is like killing. Like that's what he's really good at.
Yeah, and
you're right about the autistic spectrum thing because he's very meticulous about how he goes about his business. It's always the same routine.
Yeah. It's like he has it's like a ritual to him of how he sets up with like his equipment, how he approaches each like cleaning job that he gets. And so, like I say, I knew like he had some sort of like there was something there, like he wasn't just like I say, I didn't know it was autism or if he had like you've mentioned a mind of a 10-year-old, or he just had like an immature like outlook of like his life and stuff like that because of his upbringing and where he's from. And I'm assuming because he's fled Italy to come to America, I'm assuming over in Italy was also a hitman there as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I know they mentioned that when he was in Italy with his girl, they had made plans to elope together, but when the father found out, he killed the daughter. And maybe that's just something that kind of turned Leon into a monster where he was like very angry. And so that maybe that's the reason why, because there is a moment where we first get introduced from Leon to Matilda in the hallway of their apartment building. And, she had just got done like getting struck by her dad, like, a bloody nose or whatever. And she goes, is it always this hard or is it just hard as a kid? And he's like, it's always this hard. So he was kind of explaining his own life sort of right there. So.
Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense, but as the plot progresses, he kind of bumps into Matilda at one point in a family, and you're kind of like a dysfunctional family. Like a father comes across quite strict or quite, you don't know what's going on there. She's got like a sister and a brother, a younger brother, and she seems to be like even though she's like the middle child. The family, she comes across like she's the mother of the family, like she's the one that goes out, gets the shopping, she's probably does the cooking, the cleaning. She basically looks after her siblings because her father, who apparently works or whatever the reason is, like she looks after the kids and looks after the home. And suddenly one day after, she decides, I'm going to go out grocery shopping for the family. This is where we are introduced to our main villain of the piece, who I absolutely love, Gary Oldman in this. For me, Gary Oldman, this is one of my favourite roles of Gary Oldman, because basically he works as a what's it called? A DTA agent, a DEA agent, a DEA agent, and obviously he's also a drug addict as well as being like a DEA agent. He's corrupt as hell. He's like selfish, always like on edge. He's like He has a bad temper, put it this way. He's like off the box crazy. But it turns out that Matilda's father has, he actually works for this DEA agent and the corrupt agent under him. And they basically store drugs in their apartment. And it's basically whenever they must, do a drug raid and get the drugs, they then take some of them drugs and store them in their apartment. It's a way to keep, it under wraps and under notice by probably the good federal agents that, if they found out, all hell would break loose. And then one day, Gary Oldman character Norman Stansfield ends up paying the father a visit. And when he goes to pay the father a visit, he's not there. He's not in a very good mood. Like he always is never in a good mood. He's high as hell. He's on edge. And it turns out that the father has been stealing part of the drugs from their supply that they have stashed there for his own gain, whether they sell it, whether they use it themselves, but he's stealing from Norman Stansfield, which is a no-no. So what ends up happening, because he's corrupt and because he's, on edge all the time, he's paranoid, he's all the things that you imagine when you're a heavy drug user, he ends up killing the father, but in the same time of killing the father, Matilda's younger brother and older sister also killed in the process. And when Matilda's coming back from grocery shopping, she knows that there's something not right, and she just gets this feeling something terrible has happened. And she kind of, I think, in her own mind knows what's happened. So she's hysterically upset, crying, but keeps calm enough to walk down the corridor and knocks on Leo's door. And he lets her into the apartment because he himself has kind of heard some of this commotion and kind of has figured out something really bad has also happened.
Yeah, and that's a nice moment because, Leon at this point, he doesn't want drama or trouble. So like he tries his best to avoid people. Like he just doesn't get involved. He doesn't talk. He does live by a strict code of no women, no children in his business. But he knows that the guys down the hall had just like basically slaughtered that family. Mm-hmm. And when she comes back, she hears them talking about the little boy that's dead. And so she's immediately starting to really, get upset because she doesn't have like a great relationship with the rest of the family. Mm-hmm. So, but she is very protective of a young boy. And when the father tries to, he tries to fight back with Oldman's character, Stansfield, and them, he gets one guy killed, but then also gets himself plus the little boy killed in the process. Mm-hmm. So she's at the door, begging Leon to open the door, and Leon's like, "Fuck, I can't do this." Like,
yeah, I mean that's a very intense moment, especially when you've got the other guy over her apartment door just staring at her, kind of, and you're thinking, "Shit, is he going to kill her?" And she's like trying to stay calm, but you can also, when she's not looking at him, she's got floods of tear and panic and so scared on her face. And then Leon finally lets her in the apartment, and for me that was one of those key moments in the movie that always stood out, and I remember profusely from when I first seen it many years ago. I always remember watching it years ago and having my eyes glued to the screen in that particular moment, because you were thinking, is she next, or is Leon going to come out the room and just go batshit crazy and kill everybody? You just didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, so, he's sitting there and he decides he's going to let her in, because, again, like, he understands the circumstances and doesn't want to like just leave her at the door to die. So he lets her in, sort of pretending that she belongs there in that house. And that's when the rest of the guys inside the other apartment where her family is realizes there's a missing child. There's one missing. So one guy goes to look for her, and that's when the guy at the door you're talking about is like, is that the kid? He starts kind of wandering down the hall where the door is for Leon. So it's really kind of a neat thing. Leon pulls out the part of the lock mechanism so he can peek out the hole. And he's looking at this guy trying to like listen into his room, his building. And Leon's like moving his gun, like if he has to shoot him, he's like positioning it to where, okay, you just stay there. If I have to kill you, I'm going to do it this way. But it becomes no problems there at that point, and then we just move on. But now begins the friendship with Matilda and Leon and how they have to navigate going forward.
And I think the for me, these are the best scenes in the moment where he's brought her into his home and they're sitting. There's that particular moment where they're sitting at the breakfast table. And she starts talking about her family, and she's like saying, I never liked my older sister. She was a bitch, or, and my dad wasn't great. But he's like, well, they're your family and you've been crying over them. And she's like, well, no, I was crying over losing my little brother because he was so innocent. And you can actually, she basically is letting you know how dysfunctional the family is. And how she was the caretaker and how she was the one that did nothing but look after our older sister, who I guess took her for granted. And, she was trying to protect the younger brother who was so innocent and, unaware of like how crazy the world is. And also trying to stop her father, who was probably abusive as well as strict. And so she really had to grow up fast. And this is also when you get that pinnacle moment where she kind of figures out that Leon's more than what he is. And he goes, I'm a cleaner. And she goes, you mean a hitman?
Yeah.
And suddenly they have this conversation where she's like, well, I want you to train me to be a hitman or a cleaner, aka cleaner, so I can get revenge for the death of my brother and my family. And that kind of starts this whole whirlwind of like, he then starts going out on odd little jobs, and she's like tagging along, and she's like zooming in and taking it all in. Which also another thing I noticed about this film, because she was only a young girl in this, is it didn't like, you wouldn't get this in films easily. You see her smoking, you see her like talking to dudes, you see her doing all like crazy shit like that, which would never happen in the movie these days. They wouldn't have the balls to like show anything like that.
Well, and that's where the difference between the actual theatrical release of this film and the director's cut really are different. And had you ever seen the director's cut at all?
No, like I say, I know that there is a director's cut out there. I've just never had the opportunity to see it.
All right, so this is the interesting thing, and I've watching it today again. Like I understand like what Besson was trying to do with the film, but the actual best cut is what you watched. You watched the theatrical version, but now in the theatrical version, you still get those little bit of uncomfortable moments where Matilda, in her grief, in her crazy childhood, in her anger and her sense of lostness, I guess, she kind of like looks at Leon not so much as a father figure, but almost like someone that she's in love with. Like she has this fantasy in her head that this guy is saving her from the world. And we get this at times, even in the theatrical version, that it's very uncomfortable because she tells Leon at one point, like, I love you, and I feel it in my tummy. And even when I was watching that version back in the day, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like and I said to myself, I'm glad they never pushed it. But then if you've ever seen the director's cut, they really expand on this. It gets really crazy. And we have even deeper moments where it's like, oh my God, I feel so uncomfortable right now because of the way that Matilda comes on to Leon. Now, they never engage, and Leon does a great job. Like Jean Reno does a great job of like seeing how he's uncomfortable about the way that she is with him. But the things that Matilda says, like I can understand, like when they went to do test screenings for this, they showed the uncut version and people were not into it because it was just so awkward and weird. And it really, it's a testament to Reno and Portman because the way they acted it out was like fantastic. But I understand like why they cut it because it's way too dark in the sense of where they were
Yeah,
trying to go with it. So thank God they didn't release that in the
yeah. Like
theaters.
this goes back to what I was saying before about like him being uneducated or having him like a having like
Yep.
a 10-year-old's mind or having autism, because I think she homes in on the fact that he isn't as smart as he comes across. And yes, he's a
Right.
great assassin. Yes, he can do all that, but the way he lives his life, she notices things like the routine thing. She notices all these different aspects. So she basically, like she was with the brother and the older sister, she like become in many ways like she's trying to like not take over, but kind of she sees certain things which is uncomfortable, and like I think it's her way to try and see if she can control him or try
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
force him to do something he shouldn't, and then she can probably go, "You shouldn't have done that."
Well, I don't know if she was ever going to do that, but because she does admire his job as what he does, like he's really good at it, she did pick up on the fact that he is mentally a child. And so I think she, even at her young age, is using her sexual power to kind of take advantage of it because that's where she's like, oh, well, he's kind of innocent. Like in his heart, he's innocent. So like he's this
Mhm.
brave guy that kills people, but there's this door opening. So even when she has this moment, and I don't think it's in a theatrical cut, it might be still, where he's really trying to cut loose because like there's a couple of times where she tells people in the open that they're lovers and it gets them banned out of a hotel.
Yeah.
So he's like trying to say, you know what, you take a gun, you go do what you need to do. But then she's like, well, you might as well just left me to die outside that door. So she picks up a handgun, loads it, does a little Russian roulette, plans to shoot herself, and she's like, if you don't care about me, then you're gonna let me do this, and it's just gonna be what it is. If you save me, then you have to keep me with you. And so
Mhm.
when she tries to do it, he knows that the bullet's in the chamber. He already recognizes it as being cocked in there. So obviously he saves her because he doesn't, it's not because he's in love with her as a sexual object. It's just that he
Yeah.
does care about her well-being. So I do like that Reno approached this with his idea that Leon has this 10-year-old mentality, which you brought up,
Mhm.
but he keeps it on a platonic level. Like he never
Yeah.
crosses that
He
boundary.
looks at her like a friend or a younger sister, and he wants to
Yes.
protect her, but not like you've mentioned. In like, there's no sexual chemistry there. It's platonic. It's like a friendship. It's like a brother. He's like a brother sister relationship he wants, where
Yep.
she's kind of hints like she like toes the line with it, which is where the uncomfortableness comes in.
Yeah.
And obviously he's going round because there's DEA agents and other agents all over the place, and there's one point where they're out on a job and there's like DEA agents, and he basically has to get by them, and he has to rescue her from like a building, and so he takes a few of them out, and this is where Norman Stansfield puts two and two together, that he's seen these kind of paths or patterns from a certain assassin hitman, and he kind of recognizes, when they talk and describe about the guy who's in the building, that he sounds like he's one of these Italian hitmen who works for old Tony.
Hmm.
So this sets the space where he goes to actually speak to old Tony, where Tony realizes the gig's up and that if he doesn't give him the information, he's probably going to end up dead. But there is some funny moments with Gary Oldman, like when he's getting questioned by his senior officers about the actual killing of the dad and the brother and the sister, and this one always blows me. Wait,
Well, yeah. I know which one you're talking about because the funnier thing about that, years ago when I first met Neko,
oh,
yeah,
Don't have time for this Mickey Mouse bullshit.
Right. And Neko years ago, I used to, whenever we got into an argument, I would say that quote. And at the time, I didn't really remember where I picked it up from, but I always held on to it. So when her and I went to watch the film and review it for our podcast a few years ago, it happened. And she's like, that's what you do to me all the time. That's what you do to me. She was laughing so hard. She's like, that's where you got that shit from that you keep saying.
Mhm.
And now I got my mother-in-law saying the same shit. She says the same shit all the time now.
But that's what he says to his senior officers. And like I say, this came out in 1994. I might have seen it the year after, 1995. But not only, like you say, is the chemistry between Natalie Portman and Jean Reno that's done, it's Gary Oldman's performance in some of the one-liners and how he performs. He's just a great villain. And, you know, what happens next in the movie is that he puts two and two together and he actually follows in the building, and Natalie Portman's character kind of discovers about Norman Stansfield, and she decides she's going to try and kill him herself. And she kind of tracks him down and goes to the building, and she thinks she's got one over him, and she ends up going into the toilet, a bathroom, and he's behind the door because he kind of recognizes it all and recognizes what's going on. And, you know, like you mentioned earlier, they knew there were 3 children in that household. 2 had been killed, 1 survived, and now you've put 2 and 2 together that she is the 3rd child. And
yeah, he notices that, you know, he's not stupid. He, you know, despite all his like drug use and, you know, his corruption, he picks up on things, and he noticed that this girl is like following him around to the building. And so by the time she gets in and goes up to the bathroom where, you know, he's supposedly in one of the stalls, he comes out from behind the main door and, you know, she knows she's been caught. So he's very eerie. He's like, you know, I don't really take pleasure in killing kids, but and he starts giving this lecture to her, and it's like, and I think it's at that point that one of his men come in and says, hey, one of our guys just got killed down in Chinatown, and it was from a hitman that was Italian. This is where he's like, oh, I see what's happening now, because obviously she's admitted that her trying to kill him is a personal matter about the brother. And he's picking up on it now. So now he's like, as you said, he starts to figure it all out. Like, okay, now I know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's when he goes pays old Tony a visit. And basically old Tony, you know, ends up giving up where Leon is. You also have their moments with old Tony when Leon was building a relationship, a friendship with Matilda. He was talking to old Tony, say, if anything happens to me, I want you to give all my money to Matilda. I want you to look after her. And at first, you know, you think that's dead sweet, and he's like saying nothing's going to happen to you, don't you worry. And the next thing you know, by this point in the movie, even though I don't think he obviously wants to, it's either his life or Leon's life, he ends up giving up his location of where they are. And this is basically when Norman, he goes to the building with people, and well, there's a team of agents hiding in the building, and Matilda's out and about, and as she comes into the building, she's suddenly grabbed and brought up to the and he says to her, don't speak, just nod your head yes or no to me questions. And he goes, is he alone? Yes. She nods her head. Do you have a special knock or a signal to let them know that I'm there? So she kind of just makes something up on the wall, because I don't think they have like a special signal. She knocks on the wall. So when he goes to the door, one of the agents, after they're keeping her hostage, they knock on the door, and the door opens, and then all hell breaks loose. People slowly start getting taken down one by one, shot, because Leon immediately knows by the knock on the door
Yep.
And because, like you say, he has a routine. He knows how things work. He immediately knows that bang, that this isn't right, and that something's happened to Matilda.
Yep. It's a wrong. She gives him purposely the wrong knock sequence, and so when the first guy, the first group goes up there to go because they have the keys to the apartment now, so they knock and it's the wrong knock. So that sets off Leon to know that this is not the right people. It's not Matilda. So it's one of my favorite parts of the movie because the guys open the door, the SWAT team goes in, and they're kind of like looking around the corners because he was at this point he was like laying on the bed. It's the first time he actually slept in a bed. She convinced him to actually just sleep, which was really nice for him. He was enjoying that. So when the knock is wrong, he has to get his game face on. And all you see is like after they've gone through the entryway to the apartment, you see at the top of the door, there's this hand that comes and closes the door. You just hear all these gunshots going. And then the door just opens and there's like all the guys, SWAT team is dead. And the rest of the guys in the hallway, they're like, fuck, damn, wait. Yeah, they don't know what they're doing. And of course, Stansfield's on the walk. He's like, I told you to be careful.
Yes, and then he says they've taken off half the men, and he rings Stansfield, and then they say, oh, what's your buddy? He goes, bring everybody. He's like, what? What do you mean, bring everyone? And he goes, everyone. So,
which that part of my intro.
Yes, and literally that happened, and literally they start bringing people left, right, and centre in to fight Leon, and it's basically an all-out war between Leon, Matilda, who's with him, and these other guys. And as it's all happening, you do see Leon like getting shot a little bit and getting, in self-defense. He's like trying to protect Matilda, and what ends up happening is he is shot, but what ends up happening is he's trying to protect Matilda, and he says, I need to protect you, and there's like a shaft, like what's it called, that shaft thing that goes down?
Yeah, it's where the fan comes, like it's just like a ventilation system. So, but it's also where it's just where all the electrical stuff is behind the wall. So it's you got like this ventilation, almost like from Die Hard, but it's just not as fancy, and it's old school. So he has to actually, cut out the drywall and stuff like that in order to open up a space.
Yeah.
She knows that he can't get down in this. She's the only one that can. So he gives her the plant, which is something that is a big piece of the whole movie for him, that he takes care of this plant.
Yeah, it's his best friend.
Yeah, almost like Wilson. Yeah, it's almost like the volleyball. So he gives her the plant and puts her down. And it's just a nice moment because she's upset. She knows that like he may not come back. Like she's distraught. Like she's like, you got to come with me or let me stay with you. He's like, no, go do this. I can do this myself because I'm by myself. I'll be able to get out of this, which, he almost does.
Yeah.
But it's just a really good moment. Great acting between the two actors, showing the emotion.
Yeah, and I think deep down she wants him to come, but knows he can't. And I think deep down she knows in herself this might be the last time she's going to see him.
Yeah.
And he says like run, and then go, and she gets out and she kind of bypasses everyone. You just see her kind of power walking down the street with tears in her eyes, and like upset, knowing that this is probably the last time I'm going to see Leon. He himself, he kills one of the DEA agents, and he puts on a suit. And he pretends like he's injured. He's one of them. He goes, I'm injured. I need help. I need to. And that's basically how he tries to get out. But because he has been severely injured. But I think it's also part of his plan because he's not stupid. I know we'll say, he's got like a mind of a 10-year-old, or he's got that side of him. But he's also, because he's done this for years. And I think he knows this is probably his last moment, but he also, I think he does this in a way so you could get to Stansfield. So
yeah, I mean, he's innocent in the ways of education. Like this is something that a friend of mine said to me years ago, is like, you may not have book smarts, but you have street smarts, and he's a
Yes.
survivalist. He's a survivor, so he knows how to survive in a very violent world, but he's just innocent in other ways that
Yeah.
Matilda shows him throughout this film.
Yeah, and well, he's definitely street smart, and sometimes street smarts better than book smarts. And basically, as he's walking towards the entrance of the building, and in our mind, the audience's mind is watching. We're thinking, yes, we know he's been shot, but he seems like he's fine, and he's like playing on the fact he's been shot, and it's like a flesh wound or something. And he's gonna get out safe, but then he suddenly collapses to the ground and turns around, and you just see more blood kind of gushing from him, and then suddenly a figure stands over him. And it's Norman Stansfield, who's like, hello, you are my dirty little assassin, basically, who's been causing all this problems for me. And he's like, you're Norman Stansfield? He went, yes, that's who I am. And he went, Matilda.
Servants.
Yes. And he's like, Matilda's left you a present. And he's got something in his hand, and he hands it over to Norman. And when he opens it up, it's the pins. It's like he's like little pins. Like, what the hell? So then he opens Leon's jacket, like he's bulletproof jacket, like that was protect, and he's full of like he's just put all over him like all these grenades and bombs, and he's like, oh shit! And the next thing you know, boom, the whole bottom floor of that building, like where they are, it just explodes. So basically sacrifice himself, and he also revenges the death of Matilda's father, sister, and brother by doing that. And next thing you know, she's like at some sort of I thought it was like a school for children, like a
school for girls. It was the same school where her dad was paying for, but she was like kind of playing hooky. She just wasn't going, and so she goes back because she has this discussion with Tony. Tony's like, I've got money for you that Leon left behind. You come here once a month, I'll give you some money for spending or whatever. And of course she's like, well, I can clean for you. And he's like, no, you're not there yet. And he gets kind of angry because like she's so young. So he's like, just keep practicing or keep going to school, get educated, do that.
Yeah, because Tony's dead nice to her in the beginning because he's grieving as well over the loss of Leon. Because I think Leon was probably one of his best hitmen, and he's trying to be nice to her and like, I'll give you money every month if you come back, once a month, I'll give you money. Basically, Leon's money goes and I'll look after you, but go to school, get educated. She's like, well, what if I worked for you? And she's like, what do you mean work with? What if I was a cleaner? And that's when he gets angry because he's like, you're too young, you can't be a cleaner, get the fuck out of here. I'll look after you, but I don't only want to see you once a month.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, he's being angry and he's being that way, but I think in his own way, he's trying to protect her. Because
absolutely.
I think, because he's like, get educated, do something, because he's trying to keep her away from this life.
He knows that she's not, and that's the thing too, is that in some ways, Leon was trying to teach her that, it doesn't have to be this way. In fact, I think that as he's putting her down that ventilation shaft, he's kind of like, he tells her like, we can just go away from now. We don't have to do any of this anymore. I want you in my life. Is like almost like a kid, like, y'all take care of you. And then we could just get away from all this madness. But, obviously it doesn't work out that way. But, I think Tony was the same way, where he's just kind of like, Leon would want you to go to school, not really be in this world. Just go get your education and try to be somebody else other than this.
Yeah. Like, because of that, I think this is all the life Leon ever knew. So, and he knows it's not an easy life. So he, like you say, that big brother mentality in his mind, that friend mentality in his mind, he's like, don't do what I'm doing, do something better with your life and have a better life than what I've got. And in his own way, that's kind of how he was. So before we rate this and give a final thought, because the way this movie ended, where she wanted to become a cleaner and an assassin or a hitman herself, would you, a few years later, wanted a sequel about her character Matilda and how she continued?
Yeah, they obviously the director was planning on doing one, and they were going to wait till Portman got older, which would have been a good idea. Like if they had gone 10 years down the road and then like if they would have found a way to keep Leon alive, fine. But if not, it would have been cool to kind of see Portman reprise the role as Matilda and maybe gone into it almost like a ballerina style assassin before, Um, but there were some issues when Besson left the company that had the rights to this film, so they don't give it away. Like they're basically using it as bargaining chip, so he couldn't do it. So he did the movie Colombiana with what's her face from Guardians.
Karen.
No, not Gillan. The other one. Who
Zoe.
plays Gamora.
Yeah, Zoe says, I know what you mean.
Saldana. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So she does that movie with Colombiana, which is a similar feel. But I thought at the time, like, in the meantime, if Besson had been smart, he could have done like a prequel to this one, and
Leon.
then 10 years later do the one with Portman. But I guess he just didn't think about it at the time.
Yeah, they could have done the prequel where you see why he ended up in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then did the sequel with her, because I was thinking sequel, like, there's been talks for years that they're going to do a Kill Bill Volume 3 with the daughter,
Right.
going after the bride, from the first Kill Bill movie, which I think I would love to see that, but as time progresses, I don't think it'll happen. And if it did happen, I don't think Quentin Tarantino would direct it, because I know him and Uma Thurman aren't on the best of places anymore. They were very good friends, but there was an incident during the filming of that movie where she got hurt and he tried to cover her up, and then a few years later the footage was leaked online. And I think that's another reason why she's never done an action movie for quite some time, because I think mentally she was in a bad place with it all, and kind of that's how she kind of stayed away from action. And I think the old guard too, which I know apparently it's getting bashed left, right, and centre. Not that great a movie. That's her first, I think, action movie she's done since probably Kill Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in all, your final thoughts on Leon, and what would you rate it?
I still love this film a lot. Like I said, I could kind of understand what Besson was trying to do with his longer version of it, because he's trying to just let it be a deeper film about how Matilda's dealing with all the insanity around her with the death of her family, and then Leon and the feelings there, whatever. But for most people that don't really want to deep dive into something that thought provoking, because this movie's not really designed for that, really, to be honest. So the theatrical cut is really the best cut that's out there, because it gives you a little bit of taste of that stuff, but it doesn't really dwell on it. It just allows you to see it as like a good action film where really Gary Oldman shines hard in this. Like his ability in this is so awesome.
Yeah.
Just the little details that he does. And again, Jean Reno and Portman are also great in this, as well as Aiello. It didn't change much for me. It's still a 10 out of 10. I fucking love this film. It's so good.
Yeah. I like I say, I haven't seen this film for a while, so it was quite enjoyable seeing it again. I did feel, now that I'm older, I did feel a little more uncomfortable with the scenes you've mentioned, where she's trying to play the game with him. I thought, but at the same time, the fact that at her age, her performance in this, and the chemistry between her and Jean Reno, Natalie Portman, were just fantastic. And as always, Gary Oldman for me steals the movie. Is like just this out of control, paranoid, crazy DEA corrupt agent, but he's still smart enough to figure stuff out. So for me, I'm going to also give this a strong 10 out of 10. So,
Yeah, like you talked about that scene where they're kind of like acting out characters, like that's tame. The director's cut, there's two moments where one, they're in a restaurant and she attempts to crawl over the table and wants to kiss him. They never do it, but she attempts to. And then because they're drinking also, she's young, she's having champagne or whatever, so that's part of it too. But then there's another moment where she actually comes to and says, it's so uncomfortable. She's like, it's very important when a young girl's life, when she first makes love, that it's actually out of love. And you can just see Leon's face, like he just keeps drinking milk, like I'm not here, I'm not here, I'm not here in this. So it really is crazy, like how much he was trying to push this love triangle with them.
Yeah.
But the way that he did it was actually pretty good because Jean Reno, again, doesn't go down that rabbit hole. He just stays put where he is.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you ever get a chance, check it out. You'll see what I'm talking about. Where you're kind of thankful that they didn't do that. But
I thought even her like pretending she's Madonna and acting out Madonna, that was crazy. And then Marilyn Monroe, it was like.
Yep. Yeah, and you can see his face. He's like, "Oh my God, what's going on?"
Yeah, even though that's probably tamer than the scenes you're talking about, you're still like, yuck.
Yep.
Yeah. So for the next retro classic movie show, what would you say your pick is going to be?
It's going to be the Wesley Snipes film Passenger 57.
Oh yes, that's a good one. I haven't seen that one for a long time, so it'll be nice to revisit that one again. What is coming up on the Metal Tavern Radio?
Most of the recent stuff coming this week is Ghouls of Midnight. My pick will be The Night of 1,000 Cats. And then on Friday, I'm going to do a Lone Wolf with Dub episode for the 2000 film Versus. Trying to see if I can get everybody to join for that one. I know that you and I are going to do one in September for Ip Man, which will be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like that's pretty much Saturday I'll be on Silver Screen Savants with Oldman. I've chosen The Beastmaster as the movie we're going to review.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah, so that's going to be a lot of fun watching that. But that's pretty much all in the works right at the moment.
Yeah, as for me in the entertainment headquarters, tomorrow we have the next Into the Darkness franchise discussion where we talk all things horror on that segment, and we're going to be talking about the Psycho franchise that was started by Alfred Hitchcock. So that's coming tomorrow. That's about 10 p.m, probably live as well. Then the next bit of content coming to the channel is on the 16th. And that is another live. And that's going to be the Lethal Weapon special. Yes, I did a poll on the channel to see which Buddy Cop franchise you wanted us to review. And that was the winner. And I think you're happy with that, aren't you, Anubis?
Oh, yes, I am indeed. That's a fun franchise.
Yes. And then the next Kaiju Connections segment is going to be a trilogy. We're doing the Damaging trilogy, which I've just literally bought the box set. So I'm looking forward to watching that and checking them films out again. I haven't seen them for a while. And there might be one or two surprise reviews coming on the channel real soon as well. But that's it from me, and this is it from my good friend and co-host, Mr. DJ Anubis of the Metal Tavern Radio. Please like, share, and subscribe to him and his channel. He does some amazing content. If you like your heavy metal music, and want to mix it up with some great movie discussions, check out his channel. And if you want to, if you're not already, please like, share, and subscribe to the entertainment headquarters for more retro classic movie show.
Hit that button.
And a lot more. But until next time, take care, everybody. It's you.